Roster Mania. Was it a dub or was it an L? There was a lot of good moves and there were a lot of bad moves in this Roster Mania, and it's not done yet. So today we're going to be going through talking about the confirmed rosters and the rumored rosters. I'm going to be giving you guys my opinion on these teams and maybe what they can do to actually build a championship squad. I'm gonna be honest though, most of them are some mid-pack. Starting out with the reigning world champs, the New York Subliners, and I'm gonna be honest, this doesn't make any sense at all to me. You win 3 events in the year, which is very hard in the CDL era, and on top of that, you win COD champs. You just won the last event of the game, and yet they're not sticking together. Now this happened one or two ways, okay? I know that Kismet was on a lower salary because of when he signed, and they were trying to increase his salary. Makes sense. He obviously champs MVP, phenomenal player this year. He deserves an increase. They were trying to renegotiate Priest's salary and give him lower than what he was getting last year. Now, I don't know the exact numbers. And from what I know, they were only trying to renegotiate Priest's, not Skies or Hydra's. So if his teammates were some real ones, if management was only trying to lower Priest's salary, I would assume that maybe Kismet, Skies, Hydra, some of them took some pay cuts. Maybe Kismet was willing to not get such a bump in salary, and it still didn't work out, but they kind of tried everything, or they literally left my man high and dry. Like nobody was willing to take a pay cut, and he's got some heavy hitters on his team making a lot of money, more money than Priesta, and they were just like, nah, it's not my business, you know. And to be honest, it's not on them at all to kind of take a hit on their salary. It's management and Priesta, but you just won 3 events. You just won COD champs. Like, I hope that they tried to do everything they could and it just didn't work out. Now, it is rumored that they're going to pick up Sib. It's basically all but confirmed. I would be surprised. I'd be shocked if they offered him any more than they did Priesta. But, you know, maybe Priesta thought he deserved more, or he could get more money on Boston Breach. And Sib's obviously just, he wants to play for a championship caliber team to really improve his stock and prove himself in the league. Trash move in my opinion. I mean, obviously Sib is great in his own right, and NYSL will still be really good, but you just won 3 events. I'm going to say it again. You just won COD champs. Like, you got to at least see it through to the opening event of the next game. You have to. And the most fucked up thing about it is they literally have, "We are your 2023 COD League champions" in their pinned tweet. And then you go down 2 tweets and it's a minute 30 video, a release statement video of Priesta for this past year. I mean, come on. I know it's a business at the end of the day. I get that, but come on. Like I said, absolutely hate the move. The next team, though, is going to be Atlanta FaZe. They obviously dropped Slasher, or they released him, whatever you want to call it, and they picked up LAT's Draza. Now, I love this. Draza has been one of the best players in the game the past couple of years. He's a true flex player. I think he solves a lot of Atlanta FaZe's issues, because I think their biggest problems the last couple of years were 2 things. One, they never truly had a real flex player. They kind of had Celium, who over the last couple of years has really moved into that main AR role. I don't want to say kill whore oriented, but just very, very slow paced. He's going to get his kills. He's going to hold down lanes. And if you look at the last game, they had Slasher and Celium. Slasher himself is not a flex player. He's a main AR player as well. Now, he can kind of be solid at that role, but it's just not his play style. So it really messes up the pacing for the team. And just everything else in between, like the things that you really don't see on the map, the positions that are being held, the routes that are being taken. So it's tough. But Draz is literally a true flex player. And what I mean by that is, if there is a game that has a flex gun, right, he's going to be able to run that gun. If there is a game that's just 2 guns, AR and SMG, he can run both guns at the highest level. Okay, if there is a map that needs to be 3 subs, he can run a sub, easily let MC do his thing on the AR. If it's a 2-and-2, he will still play aggressively with the assault rifle. He'll let Celium do his thing, and he'll use his AR in that flex playstyle. So it's going to help them out a lot. I think this is arguably the biggest win of Roster Mania so far. Yeah, they're going to be pretty fucking scary. Circling back to talk about Slasher, I'm surprised that he went to this team. But it honestly makes sense, because Boston Breach made moves going into this year. Look, Boston Breach had a very solid team last year. They had no idea what the hell was going on the map. Very talented team, would never win with that team. They don't know the ins and outs of COD. Okay, very, very talented. 0 fundies, horrible comms, etc., etc. But they were still solid. So what did Boston management do? They knew their issues. They knew that talent wasn't going to get them to where they want to be. So They went out and they picked up Slasher and Priesta. Okay, this is a combo package. They got the most winningest player in CDL era right now, which is P-Dog. They also have Slasher, multiple time winner, COD Champs winner, same with Priesta, obviously. So they paired these two up with Snoopy, who's their rookie that has a lot of talent. He could be molded. I love this move. This is a move, in my opinion. This is a huge dub for Boston. I don't know how much they're paying. I don't know if they overpaid. I don't know what. I don't know who their fourth is going to be. I think that's going to be interesting to see who they kind of pair with Snoopy on that sub role. Because from my understanding, you're going to have Slasher, main AR, Priesta on the flex role, and then Snoopy needs his sub duo. So we'll just have to wait and see. But so far, I think this is a very solid team. And I think from what Boston had last year, major improvement. Another LAT player was on the move as well. Envoy is going to Toronto. I know I said draws to FaZe, and I might be biased, might have been the biggest win, but it might actually be this Toronto team. Because in the beginning of Roster Mania, it was rumored that Toronto wasn't trying to pay CleanX, wasn't trying to pay Insight. They were going to surround Scrappy with a bunch of rookies. Now, nothing has been confirmed yet, I don't believe, on CleanX and Insight. I'm sure they're probably trying to figure it out. But instead of that, they went and probably got the biggest upgrade just in overall skill, overall talent, just overall gameplay in the entire Roster Mania. Now, obviously, FaZe, like I said, getting Draza was huge, but Toronto, a top 2, top 3 team in the entire year. They got second at Champs. They did get absolutely blown the hell out. They drop Hixie and they pick up Envoy, who is one of the best sub players in the game. He's been one of the best sub players in the game for a while now. This is the biggest 1-for-1 move in the entire Roster Mania so far. And I'm not trying to talk shit on Hixie. It's just, look, there's a skill difference, okay? I don't think there is a shot in hell that Toronto Ultra does worse with Envoy than Hixie. I don't think it's going to happen. So I can see this team being a contender the entire year. I could see them basically placing top 3 the entire year. Like if CleanX and Insight are on the team, this team's going to be deadly. Now, this intro though was by far the worst intro that I've seen of a player joining a new org. This is the biggest L of Roster Mania was that. Didn't even let him talk, didn't even do anything. Didn't even say anything. But great pickup on Envoy. And then there's some of the rumored rosters that haven't really been announced. People are just waiting on it, but it's basically all but confirmed because where else are these players going to go? And the first one's going to be Optic. The rumor is Dashy, Shotzi, Kenny, and Pred. I think that both of those players, Kenny and Pred, are a lock to join this team. I really just, like, Kenny's not on LAT. Pred, I don't think he's going to be on Seattle. Those are like the 2 best players that are available still for Optic from everyone else that has already made their moves. So I think that's going to happen unless there's some crazy issues with contract talks. And I think this is an upgrade. I think this is an upgrade. This team is going to be better than their team last year if 2 things happen. 1, Kenny needs to be the IGL. Okay, they have unbelievable talent. Pred, Shotzi, Dashy. They don't really have great fundamentals or great leadership skills. Kenny does, though. Kenny's one of the most impactful players in Call of Duty history. He knows how to play the game correctly. And I'm not trying to say that Shotzi and Dashy and Pred don't, but I think that there's a lot of areas where they can improve on in that aspect, and Kenny can help them out if he actually takes on that role, which I think it's a no-brainer that Kenny would have to kind of be the in-game leader. I don't see anyone else doing it. I don't think anyone else meets the requirements to even do it, to be honest. So Kenny needs to go into that role, and then the rest of the team needs to just trust him. I think if that happens, they will be a dominant team. I do think this was an upgrade. This was a W from Optic of last year, but we're just gonna have to wait and see if they can really kind of just focus in on playing fundamentally correct this next year. They have all the talent in the world to go toe-to-toe with any team, which is something I think they were lacking last year. Even the last couple years. They got a good one, or they got 2 good ones if Kenny and Pred actually go through. Another rumored roster is LAT's own. From what I've heard, which isn't really much, just kind of what's going around on social media, on the COD Reddit, was LAT was looking at Ghosty. They were looking at Cammy. They were looking at, what are they looking at? They were looking at Ghosty. They're looking at Cammy, Joe to Thieves, and Afro. Sorry, Afro. Don't love it, don't hate it. This is obviously a downgrade. I don't want to say major downgrade. These guys are good. Okay, don't get me wrong. I just don't know how they're going to play together. I don't know if Cammy, Afro, Joe Deceives, and Ghosty. I keep forgetting the fucking fork is like a lot different than their previous teams. I don't know. Like Ghosty, I think is solid. I think Cammy has had his moments. Cammy's been unbelievable at times, but as of late, he's been a solid player. Joe Deceives, Very new, very young player, very streaky. Same with Afro. They're both very streaky, and that is what scares me because you need to have some sort of consistency in your players. You can't have multiple players in your team be wildly inconsistent, which right now on paper, that's kind of how LAT looks for me. They could go toe-to-toe. I mean, any team in the CDL can go toe-to-toe, but I don't know if they're actually going to be able to put it together to be like a top 4 team. Like maybe they might fall around top 6, top 8, but we don't even know if that's going to be the roster. That's just one of the main rumored rosters that we heard. And then for the rest, none of them have really made any moves or anything at all, but all those teams are going to be trash. All the teams that I just went over are going to be the top teams in the game. And I'm kidding. Some of the teams like Seattle, Florida's, the Las Vegas Legions, the LAG, whoever. It's not always how a team looks on paper. You know, NYSL going into last year didn't look like the best team on paper, not even close. And they went out there, they won 3 events, won COD champs. So just because your team doesn't necessarily look good on paper doesn't mean you're going to be horrible. And on the opposite side of that, if your team looks great on paper, you could still be pretty freaking average. So we just have to wait and see. But all the big names are basically off the board, whether it's confirmed or it's basically all but confirmed. We have to wait and see how the rest of the teams in the league go about their business. It'll be interesting because it seems like it's super top heavy. I don't know how I feel about that. Like super top heavy, like way more than before. But yeah, I think all teams basically made an upgrade. Besides NYSL, I think NYSL is probably lateral, maybe even a little worse. They could be better with Civ than Priesta, but that's the only one that doesn't make sense. I think Boston did great, Toronto did great, FaZe did great, Optic did great, LAT, duck in the water. They might be chalked, or if they get dead up, they might actually have a chance, but we'll just have to wait and see. As always, guys, I appreciate the love. See y'all later.